Recording. I'm going back to Discord. Meta, do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everyone for joining. This call is the community call related to the Prime Wiki grant proposal that went up on Echelon.io. Um, so here with us are obviously the Prime Wiki team, ready to hear feedback and comments from the community. I think before we jump into that, there were some conversations that were going on in the Echelon Discord regarding the grant and the sort of procedure of the granting process, which we totally agree with, and we had actually foreshadowed potential revisions to this program in our year-end memo, essentially under the broadening community activation. So we do recognize that like the granting program is wanting, and originally in its original form it was supposed to like be a catch-all sort of framework to allow sort of flexibility between granting types. But obviously what we're discovering is that this is like leaves smaller grants needing too much information and larger grants requiring larger grants lacking in the detail. So what we identified is that essentially it highlights a need for a lighter weight program to activate different scales of community members. So we've highlighted this in the past, we've hinted at it, but essentially in the back burner, we've been developing a bounty program to help with smaller community initiatives that will, that will allow like smaller asks, smaller activations. Let's say if you want to make a poster, you want to make a um, make a video, like you can basically submit your content for Prime, and then this in turn will allow us to be very I guess like provide the specificity to the larger grants, because asking like someone who's making a poster for a cost breakdown doesn't really make sense. So hopefully with the new cohort, we sort of left this all in the back burner, but with the new cohort being reassembled after these elections, we look forward to essentially revisiting these programs with the newly elected, and sort of yeah, moving forward with the mandate of broader activation. So moving over to the Prime Wiki, from the EP side, you know, we, we sort of all feel that the Prime Wiki would be a benefit to the ecosystem. One of the key things that sort of stood out in the proposal was the sort of highlighting of the singular point of access. I'm sure like all of us we're sort of in there lurking in all the channels at all times, and I can't remember. There's just countless scenarios where a newcomer will come in looking for information, and they're being asked to go over to the Echelon Discord, or they're in the Echelon Discord and being asked to go to the Parallel Discord, and that is just not a good onboarding process. And we all sort of uh, are imagining a scenario where when the game launches, there's going to be droves of people coming in, and I think a central point of access that sort of then points people to the information they need, either through over on Echelon side or over on parallel side, is going to be key. So I think that's why the EPs feel like this is a sort of worthy cause for the ecosystem. Beyond that, which is evident through the sort of work that they've built over the last, 3 quarters to a year, building out podcasts, doing the community awards, uh, articles, and just continuing to be part of the fabric of the community. I think that they've sort of proven that they're sort of here to stay and here to build. So that's the sort of preamble, and I will pass it over to the team and anyone else in the audience that wants to come up and ask any questions.
Thanks, Meta. I think maybe for everybody in the audience, a lot of you already know us, but it would be beneficial for us to do just a quick intro for each one of us. You probably know myself and Lito a little more, but you're probably seeing Rob's name for the first time. So with that, first, we actually have a lot of people to thank. So this is a joint effort. We wouldn't have gotten here without the help of the community and the teams that are in this community. So specifically at the Parallel team, we want to thank CL, Oso, Kalos, Gon, and a few others. At the Echelon team, Mick and Fall, and then Wardens. Really everybody on the list, but specifically I want to call out Jake and Dave for their work, and Dave specifically for spell check and accuracy at initial launch. That was critical. If any of you have been Daved in the server before, trust me, there's nothing like building a website and having Dave look over it for you. But a great experience and a great result. Last but not least, Goldie. So Goldie has been an incredible contributor. He's been an incredible partner. He's created content. He came up with the idea for the Prime Wiki Awards. So really, without Goldie, we wouldn't be here today where we are. And if you're out there and I've forgotten about you, just please know that we appreciate your help. Because again, this is a community effort and we wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of others. I'll keep my intro short. I did it yesterday on the panel, but I've got a background in the corporate consulting and startup space. My focus in my career has been in ops, business dev, and product. I've got skill sets in every area though. So we saw the community's need for a centralized location for information from the two separate entities of Echelon and Parallel, and we put this tool together for the community's benefit. I'm an active supporter in Parallel's daily operational needs, primarily in Discord as a warden, and our goal ultimately here is to take this grant and turn the MVP of the Prime Wiki into a best-in-class community-run resource. So, Lito, I don't know if you want to jump in here and just give a quick intro.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lito. Firstly, outside of crypto, I run my family's business, ensuring deadlines are met, budgets are stuck to, all those types of things. I've been a warden for Parallel a year and a half at this point, I think. Started off just an enthusiastic community member, educating newcomers, making them feel less lost with all the information. I created the FAQ user journey in Discord to help provide new users with a digestible path to take. But then I found that people that even there every day were still missing things. So I decided to create weekly recaps and easy to read encapsulation of everything from the past week, all in one place to ensure everybody could stay up to date and not miss anything. Me and Sean then decided to team up, create Prime Wiki, a place where I could host my recaps, we could build out the user journey on a bigger scale than the one I created, and a place to link people to other than just back then was the Prime proposal, where everything could just be broken down and easier to consume for them. And now we just plan to upgrade the Prime Wiki to ensure it's a space for the huge wave of newcomers that are likely to come to Parallel, to feel they have a place to go to and get educated, stay up to date, learn without feeling overwhelmed of all the information, and maybe most importantly, a place to make the leap for traditional gamers into the Web3 crypto side of things much smoother, less intimidating, and most importantly, enjoyable and rewarding. And now, Rob, you can give your introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, my name's Rob. I've been in talks with the Prime Wiki team for coming up to a year now. They've got a lot of great ideas, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to work with them. I guess I'll give a bit of a brief history about me and my background. I work R&D for the space industry in the UK, which basically means 50% technical writing and 50% living like a code monkey. And I very recently started my PhD in space sciences. When it comes to Echelon and Parallel, I'm very, very new to the ecosystem. This is all very new to me. This is a space I haven't had a lot of interaction with, and I'm quickly learning the ins and outs with the Prime Wiki team's help. I like what I see so far, and the community has been really helpful. I'm probably going to be quiet for most of this call and let Sean and Lito do the heavy lifting, but I'm open to any questions if you have any to shoot my way. That's it. Thank you.
So, Meta, I guess if you want to invite others to jump in and ask questions, I think we're ready to receive them.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. I think that I can't. Oh, there's maybe some questions on the side here. If you click on the right, we'll capture any questions that the community has, and we'll read them out.
I think maybe
typing.
yeah, we have some typing. Maybe just while we're waiting. Yeah, there was like a lot of back and forth in the some of the channels here. So I don't know if anybody who fully read and absorbed that wants to give a summary, but maybe just from the EP side. I mean, you said this a little bit at the beginning, but we generally feel like this grant, obviously given your guys' track record and involvement in the community and the products and services that already exist, we generally feel like it is a good place to allocate some prime. And again, just to reiterate what you said, Meta, there is room for growth in terms of how these processes work and what the governance flow is. But yeah, I guess just we'll get into these questions here, but just wanted to say generally on our side, given the ask and what the provided scope of work is, at least speaking for myself, it seems reasonably fair to me. But yeah, I guess with that said, maybe we can get into some of these concerns which Warwick.
Yeah, I think Nan has put in a note here, just potential quick summary of the ask. Yeah, so the ask is to cover some personnel costs, some OPEX, and then some direct admin expenses. So things that you would normally need for a website, right? Software, API, website redesign. Then in addition to that, some content creation, potentially some outside resources, as you guys have called out. You know, there's probably not everybody on the team has all the abilities to do everything that you're trying to accomplish. So some consulting and marketing costs, potentially some legal stuff that might need to be covered, and then some opportunity for the team to get together in person eventually. You know, remote organizations have the benefit of utilizing technology and working cross-functionally across time zones, but getting together, having a hackathon, doing something like that, I think would provide some value too. So those would be kind of the general areas that the grant would cover. And the product that we're looking to produce is the user onboarding experience that we previously described, right? So an experience that allows people to easily assimilate into the ecosystem and quickly ramp up to their desired proficiency, whether it be within the game or within understanding the Echelon side of things. Nan, does that capture? Okay, cool. And then Warwick, like getting into those specifics. So we've been really transparent with the EPs. We volunteered a very detailed budget with proposed costs, timelines, etc. Getting into the nitty gritty there, I don't think is something that we can do on this call, but it's something that we have done with the EPs and continue to have a conversation with them about. So, you know, let's take one question. How did you come up with costs? We did diligence on the cost associated with the improvements we want to make, as well as the new content we want to create. We spoke with multiple web devs, designers, and content creators, and we got a timeline and cost estimate, you know, plus minus 25%. So that would be one answer there.
And it looks like there's some other questions on the Echelon side as to like what the needs are. I mean, I think I sort of covered a lot of this in the earlier prologue ramble that I had. But essentially, like why we think this is valuable is there's just so much information, right? Like we were constantly struggling with this this topic that, like, for us, like, all the stuff becomes very second nature. We've been sort of ingrained over the past 2 years, but for someone jumping in, it's quite opaque, and we need all the content. Like from Parallel side, like they'll create like their own sort of like FAQs and all that stuff, and it's sort of catered to, I guess, within their system. Likewise, Echelon is writing the Git books, just disseminating the information like as as easy to read and seamless as possible. And we see that this sort of other entity, the sort of community, separate community built entity, can be a way of bridging this gap. And I think that there's value there, because you jump into like the Git book, and it's just a lot of definitions and a lot of it may not be as inviting. I mean, the content's there if you spend time with it, but I think for some people they learn different ways. And I think with with how the Prime Wiki is planning to wrap podcasts, wrap articles, along with sort of bridging the information gaps between Parallel and Echelon, I think that's for us that sort of makes a lot of sense. A couple more questions here. What factors will determine if the proposal is a success? How will you measure it? So Bu responded here. Milestones will be broken out and shared. I think that these can be measurable, similar to the defined proposal. So yeah, once we move forward, we like similar to like how we will do with defined. This is sort of like a process where we sort of gauge community sentiment. We sort of move forward, and then through the sort of contract that we develop with the Prime Wiki, we will put those benchmarks in place. I think that there was previously some concern with like giving grant teams like the full lump sum prior to. I don't think that that's what we will be doing. I mean, we haven't done that for Defined. There are definite milestones that need to be hit, and we won't be providing like lump sum and then hoping for the best. I think that these are for how we're doing it right now. We are essentially working with the teams that have put the proposal together and working through or agreeing with like sort of benchmarks that are achievable, and then essentially paying percentages out when those benchmarks have been hit. Dave asks, is there a sketch of how Prime Wiki will build out information for other projects that may exist under Echelon umbrella? I think that might be a team question.
Yeah, well, we can, as a group, answer it, I guess. Design's still up in the air to some degree with that, because obviously it's not at that point yet, but I think you can think of it similar to how like Blizzard and Battle.net host many different games under their umbrella, and like there's drop downs that you can just select which part you want to go to for information, and you can even create intertwining information that bridges it all together if need be.
Yeah. Sorry. Excuse me. The drop down iterations that we've gone through as we've worked through this have been a lot of fun, and we've been trying to tackle that issue. And like Lito said, there's a lot of good examples out there that have done this before. So it's not like you have to reinvent the wheel, but we think we can improve upon it. Certainly, given the quality of the ecosystem now we're in. And we believe that there's opportunity to create some better designs, features, and potentially layouts. So we've created wireframes, gotten some initial designs for the updates we'd like to make, and we're continuing to ideate on that. But ultimately, that experience is going to be driven by the users. They're going to tell us what they want. When they come to the site, we're going to understand which pathways they take, we're going to understand what their needs are, and we're going to cater to those. And it might be different by game, but certainly there's probably a good foundation you can build where you have a framework and then you work off of that.
Great. Zero asks, simple question. What is the plan to who will own the IP? If not Echelon, what guarantee is there that there will not be future conflict of interest or the site will be stopped, sold, etc.? If you do plan to capture a majority of the users in terms of education, wouldn't you agree that that would be a blow if the site went down?
Yeah, so those conversations I think are going to continue to occur between us and Echelon as we move through the grant process. I guess what I would say is it's going to be a conversation right now, and we're going to figure out a way to make it work. Zero, that might not give you the, I don't know, programmatic item to hold on to, or the code is law sort of response that you're looking for. But certainly, we've been here for a long time. We want to continue to participate here. Let's say there is some risk, right? Like human beings, things change, stuff happens. So we can think about ways to ensure that it continues on without our input if that were to be the case in the future. But I think that's kind of a force majeure type of situation where I think we all expect to be here for the long term and continue to provide this resource. So yeah, it's definitely a conversation and it's an interesting one, but I don't know if we can solve it as just a one-off example. It's more of a larger question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we would have to think on this a little bit. Like for me personally, like I don't know if owning the IP, like if Echelon itself is owning the IP of the Prime Wiki is important. I mean, maybe I need to think about this more, but if this is a resource that is important to the community and it for whatever reason goes under, like we would somehow support it still. But I just I guess that there is concern there, and maybe as a group we have to go back and think about it. But to me, like this is a project that is sort of born of passion for the community. We could provide a little funding to sort of bootstrap the next phase of their expansion and see how it goes. I don't know if I just don't know if the IP conversation it might be premature to me. But that said, like we'll sort of hash it out when we get to the contract phase.
It could be interesting to think about some of this in the context of Dave's question. And again, this doesn't need to happen right now for this first phase necessarily, but thinking about ways that Prime Wiki could become a Prime sync, and potentially some split of that maybe going to the sync schedule and some percent going to Prime Wiki team. I mean, obviously, when we think about game studios joining, we talk about Prime syncs, and I just as kind of a thought experiment, it might be interesting to think about how these types of partnerships could also incorporate syncs.
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit more about that. And Dave's question too. Just Warwick, though, you've put this in here a couple times, so I just want to directly answer. So there is nothing set yet on what if Echelon can influence stuff on Prime Wiki. So the website that you see right now is a collaboration effort between ourselves with Parallel and with Echelon. We ensure that we're accurate in what we put up there, and we make sure that what we put up there has the blessing of the team. So we're checking and in conversations with everybody on a regular basis, just to pull back the curtain a little bit for you. On the question about Dave, you asked it pointedly. Does Prime Wiki have a rough idea of how to gain operational revenue, ads, premium service for Prime, and even Cold's idea of a Prime sync here? I think that all of those things are really they're there, but our goal is to create a self-sustaining site that doesn't require future grant monies to operate. So however we get there, I think is up for question. What I would say is we really do not want to put ads on this website. We haven't done it to date, and we don't want to. So we want to create the best experience for the community so that they can onboard in a place without getting a pop-up or an ad on the side of the screen. We want all the pixels to be dedicated to the ecosystem. There are a couple ways to get there, as you guys mentioned. Content creation. We've got free resources that I can say will always be available to everyone. The weekly update, for example, the primetime pod. But there's possible optional paid resources that people could opt into in the future if they would like a deeper experience or deeper detail. So that might be something that we do in the future. And we've had a lot of conversations about how to do that. Same thing with video content. Closed alpha is closed for a reason. We can't share anything on that, even though we would like to. But when the game opens up for sharing, we want to provide resources to the community that are community built. Obviously, Parallel themselves are going to have content that they create that is under their purview, that is dedicated to the game. So we'll have a little bit more leeway. And I think there was a question in the governance channel that said, why shouldn't this content be consolidated to Echelon or Parallel? I think one of the key distinctions here is that Echelon and Parallel are separate entities. There are very strict rules for what one organization can or can't say about the other, and we bridge that gap. So kind of tying all the things back to what Meta said early on is there's a centralized place for information where people can go, and as a wiki that's run by the community, we have a bit more freedom to maneuver in that realm. So we think we can add value there. That's what I would say.
I want to respond to this comment that Warwick had with respect to Wowhead. If Prime Wiki ended up being Wowhead, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that's pretty a pretty grand vision. But I think related to like the ownership of it, Echelon at some point I imagine would own its own products and own its own sites for certain things. But similar to the sort of partnerships we have with, let's say, Parallel Studios, we don't own Parallel Studios, right? Like whatever Parallel decides to do, like it sort of is like a symbiotic relationship. And I don't know if I think when we talk about like the contracts and the sort of agreements that we move forward, we want to ensure that the content and the access is available to the Echelon community, moving forward. But I don't know if it's necessarily like an incubator as such that like we basically become Echelon becomes an owner of those particular I guess ventures. I think maybe in the future when there's some projects that Echelon produces on itself, those will be like dedicated. We would have like dedicated staff to maintain that. But this is sort of like these are sort of community run initiatives that I think as long as the access is still available to the Echelon community, I think that personally. It doesn't need to come with the baggage of Echelon has to get ownership rights over it. That's just me though.
Maybe I saw Bu just hopped up here, so I'll let him.
Bu's coming to sort of combat everything I said.
No. I just got done with my sort of double headsetting, so I've joined the stage to help contribute and add color where I can. Because I think Meta, you had mentioned that we've gone back and forth with the Prime Wiki guys, and I've spent a lot of time chatting with them and reviewing things as well. And so I just hopped on stage so that is continue the discussion. I might be able to add a bit more color or help answer any other questions. and vibe off of everybody.
Maybe
Cool.
one thing, just to address Shilbo's question here real quick. Would Echelon voluntarily extend this grant, or would it require a new proposal brought forth? The way I see it is that this grant has a certain set of requirements that go along with it, and then I imagine if those were fulfilled and a new scope of work was created, then it would be a process of reapplying. But like you indicate, this is somewhat more of a general governance process question, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, but after this grant is completed, I think we're going to put a pause on grants, at least until the election is over and we've transferred over to the new EPs. So that's, I mean, we're only a few weeks away from that. But I know that a bunch of the candidates are running on platforms to improve the process, and so it's likely that we'll sort of set that group off on a path to work through that. So hopefully in the near future we will have stuff like that more developed and clearly explained for people. But yeah, the short answer is I think that this grant has a certain set of requirements, and then future stuff would be a future grant.
I see a question from Nan. The site redesign is going to be using WordPress. Yes. Rob, if you'd like to just talk briefly about the tech stack, please jump in.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the site will be using WordPress. It's using WordPress right now. Basically, the initial work that I've got to do is switching over the builder from a builder called Divi to Oxygen. And there are several reasons for this, and we've had a bit of internal discussion. Basically, Divi is easy to use, which is great, but slow, rigid. Doesn't really allow us to make the customization we want. We want the site to be best in class. So we started using Oxygen and transferring some of the pages over now. And that's currently what we're briefly looking at doing. So long question short, yeah, it is WordPress.
Yeah, Rob politely, mentioned there that Oxygen's more robust, and Divi's a nice tool, but not what we're looking for. I mean, we use Divi because it was click and drop, right? Like we did not have a coding background that would allow us to build a best in class website with high performance to facilitate millions of people to move through a process. But we did the best we could with what we had at the time and our limited resources. So now we're very happy to have Rob join us and help us with kind of the full stack redesign.
It's also worth noting to kind of add on to that, WordPress is probably ideal here because it's a content management system. And these guys are going to be making posts, podcasts, etc. WordPress is really accessible and easy way for them to do this as well.
Cool. See, Nain is typing. Maybe there's another question coming through. Again, don't be shy. If you have any questions, please put your hand up.
Maybe just more.
Maybe to fill the air. I mean, I think like with TCGs, I mean, I've had these sort of roaming thoughts with the other EPs, and I think anything that sort of reinforces or enhances the community aspect of the game is going to be hugely beneficial. I mean, I think I'm not sure if many of you or any of you were there, but a couple days ago, there was a sort of impromptu, I guess, tournament and the wave one. It was like happened at 11 o'clock at night. There was 30 or 40 people piling into a Discord voice chat, watching two people play the finals for this this wave one tournament, and it was so fun. There was commentary. There, the knowledge of the game that was being sort of exchanged between the players and the viewers was really really amazing. And I think that like that's sort of at the heart of it, like anything that sort of builds on the community, more sort of interactions, and if that sort of I don't know, that spirit of that is embedded within the Prime Wiki, I think that would be big. I've noted that like playing, I didn't play Hearthstone too much. Well, I did play it a lot in Arena, but it was pretty much a solitary game because it just felt like I was playing a different quality of bot at the higher ranks. But as I don't know, there's a real opportunity for Parallel to sort of harness the sort of community input. And I don't know, I just feel like that's something that really could be every lens in which like the community thinks through some of these projects, thinking about how more conversations can be had around the actual topics could be a benefit. Okay, Nane's jumping up here.
Yeah, just before Nane gets up here, to add to that, community tournaments and events would definitely be something we'd look into doing in the future as well. Like we did the awards, we'd definitely like to add more events and things for the community to gather around.
The deck building competition, good stuff like that.
Yeah, we're just limited right now, of course. Most of the games can't be shown and stuff, but once that all comes out, we'll definitely produce more events like that.
Hey guys.
Nane.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Yeah, thank you for having me up. I just kind of wanted to skip the typing part as well. And so firstly, I wanted to say that I'm very supportive of the initiative here. I think these guys have done a great job of it. I read it as well, oftentimes. So this is a big part of what my, for example, career has been. Supervising dozens of WordPress websites at a time as well. But I understand what is needed. But I also kind of I felt that, generally the community is also kind of potentially it would help them to understand the challenges that you guys face right now, and just a summary of, how the end result will be different from what it is today and how they can benefit from it. I think it'll help them just reach a consensus generally.
Yeah, sure. So as Rob mentioned before, just improve speed, quality. That would be the first thing, right? Page loads, assets loads, video, etc. Making sure that the CDNs are set up correctly, and paying for all that stuff, right? I think in addition to that, it's the clearest thing maybe we can point to would be a pathway for whoever it is that comes to the website. So let's say you've never heard of Parallel before. We've got a pathway of videos and content for that person. Let's say you've heard of Parallel before, but you're really just trying to understand the game and you want an introduction at that level. We reach you there. And then beyond that, there would be potential other tranches of users or cohorts. But that's how I think, that's how we think, about the content that we're planning to create and the assets that we're going to provide in the future that are different than what we currently have right now. And ensuring that they're high quality and something that the community can use as a resource, but also the ancillary businesses are proud of to say, oh, okay, yeah, like we have a robust community that's putting out good content that we know that we can depend on, and it's going to help people onboard into this space. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. So I also kind of wanted to potentially emphasize the fact that I'm hoping, and I'm kind of assuming that you guys are already planning that, is that the redesign will treat this as a funnel, and it will make sure that the homepage, the entrance for any user, has a guided experience. I'm assuming that will be the case, and any kind of affirmation from your side will be helpful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever pathway somebody wants to take, we're not the tip of the spear, but we might be for some. So we want to be top of funnel and easily accessible for people to arrive at a place of understanding. So absolutely, there are going to be pathways to onboarding on the front page.
Right. So the redesign is not just going to be an improved WordPress site with better servers and CDNs. The redesign is also going to be a user experience and kind of redesign as well, right?
Yeah, the UI UX overhaul is definitely key to that redesign.
Right. Okay. And will I get paid if I contribute to the site?
Let's have some negotiations offline here.
There we go. There we go.
No, that's
It's
good.
sure, I respect it.
All good. No, thank you. So I just I was hoping that some more clarity will help people also understand that, what kind of goes into this. It's one thing to kind of imagine that, okay, so they're going to make the site faster.
For
But,
sure.
a proper redesign, which, focuses on, like I said, the funnel part, focuses on the structure for the entire site. I think the ask is reasonable in my experience. So I support it. I think it's a good initiative for sure.
Thanks. Appreciate it. And Goldie, I don't know if you want to come up on stage, but as I mentioned before, Goldie's been a huge contributor in the early stages for us, writing articles, getting the annual rewards set up. But he also has a strong background in education, learning management systems. That's not something that's currently in our purview, but it's certainly something we think about, Nan, as we go through this redesign and we try to create this pathway. So I don't know, Cold or Meta, if you can grab Goldie and put him on stage.
Yeah. Where is he? There he is. Big Goldie, come on up.
Goldie, if you just want to talk a little bit about that and how we've had those discussions of how to really educate people better. I think maybe the community would like to hear from you on that.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for bringing me up, and Sean, thanks for the kind words earlier. It's been an awesome experience, supporting you guys and contributing with content. And like Sean said, and I think Meta pointed to this, and we all know that it's a complex ecosystem with a lot of different layers, and trying to simplify that onboarding process is extremely important. So just having discussions with Sean and Lito and the team about like what some of those educational modules would look like. And there's a lot of different creative ways those can be constructed, but I think the essence of what Prime Wiki would provide would be that one-stop resource, that centralized place that provides consistency with the way that people are learning the bare minimum or learning the essentials of like what is parallel, what is the Echelon foundation, what is the studio, like what are all these amazing different components that come together to create this ecosystem. So I think the consistency is something that will really kind of shine through with the work that Prime Wiki is doing and trying to create here. And I think that's super important for the community as a whole. Everyone explains and describes things a little bit differently, and that's totally fine. That's going to happen. But if you can streamline the way that things are explained and a lot of the verbiage and a lot of the communication points, I think it makes the process not only easy for the user, like the end user, the newcomers that are coming on board and just want to like dive in and learn all they can, but it's easier for everyone else that's trying to, onboard people. And so I think that is like the central like focal point of what I'm really excited about when it comes to the future of Prime Wiki, is that it'll kind of make everyone's life a little bit easier. And that in addition to that, it kind of frees up everyone to pursue other things. So that's like one point I think I can kind of like answer to in regards of what, Sean was asking or saying. And then the other thing I kind of mentioned in the chat room is like, it's just an unbelievable opportunity for members in the community to have a voice. Like that's what it was for me. There was no way I was going to like go out and build my own like parallel website where I wanted to share my insights on like lore and stuff like that. Um, Prime Wiki really provided me the platform to share my insights and share some of my creative, pursuits on, wanting to be like more dialed in on the lore and like really share like what my experience has been, as a warden or an OG or whatever. So like I think that's really important too, is like there's a lot of people in the community that want to talk about parallel and want to share art, and you can do that on social media, but I think Prime Wiki really creates that community like home base for people to write about what they're passionate about. And then who knows, maybe that sparks new community tools, or someone discovers that they could have a potential career doing content, and Prime Wiki was the vehicle that kind of sparked that. So those are just like a few of the things that I kind of look at, not just from an educational perspective, but also like what service does Prime Wiki provide the community? And those are two like really key value points for me, at least. So sorry if that was a little long-winded, but I just wanted to get all of that out there. So
No,
yeah.
that was great, Goldie. Piggybacking on what you said, moderators don't scale. Humans are really tough to scale. They don't really scale well. So answering all the questions that the waves of people are going to have is key.
Yeah, and like just being able to point people to a central resource that's consistent. Like I know just from listening to these guys and myself included, like accuracy is one of the most important components in a lot of the stuff that I've written, right? Like I never want to write something about a character or one of the parallels backstories without knowing it's consistent with what the actual studio has created. And so I think that's really important too, is again, just like consistency in the way we're sharing the content so that there's not incongruencies in like what the studio is intending for people to experience within the game. And so like I think the team has done an awesome job of just like making sure every piece of content that's posted and all of the different info pages are like as accurate as possible. And I think when you have that accuracy and you have that trust between, okay, the studio and this independent wiki website, like that's a really kind of rare thing. And so the fact that they've created that trust already is like really a good sign for the future, because it's reliable, it's consistent, and it's going to make everyone's lives easier, because like Sean said, you can't scale humans. There's only so many Daves to go around to like make sure the accuracy is there and everything else. And so like that's one of the big things that I think and I think, like everyone said, when it comes time for the full game to fully release, there's going to be a bajillion people looking for info, and like we'll be really happy that we had Prime Wiki there to kind of point everyone to. So yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that Dave's one of a kind. There's not more than one Dave out there. So
I think there's another comment here by Boarding Co. He says that there's a couple of sites, or having multiple sites made by community members would be valuable. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Sure, I'll bring you up here. Anyways, Boarding is suggesting if we could see some wireframes and sort of what do you think, or if you could share what you see the vision of what the site might look like in the future.
Yeah.
And
So
any posts a sort of an example of I guess other community sites from different projects.
Yeah, I guess Boarding, that's probably mostly around the the process. I think, as the team alluded to, they want to improve on that process. So, a way for us to communicate and share that information as a part of the grant proposal, that's what we would look to. Right now, we've shared wireframes, we've shared design ideas and goals with the team internally. We're just not ready to share that publicly yet. But we would be happy to in the future as we get closer to publicly kind of moving over to that new stack.
Cool. All right. Wow. Thanks for joining us.
Everybody, afternoon. First off, I'd like to say big fan of the podcast. Directionally, I love what you guys are doing. I think it's really great. My question is, would you guys consider postponing the vote on whether or not this grant goes through until after the EP elections? And the only reason I say that is because there's a number of people, if you listen to all the panels, that are running with education and community engagement being a large part of their platform. And I think that furthermore, whether vacation, you're one of those people, right? And so I think how we look at this grant might be different if you end up getting a position versus if you're still just a community mod member, right? And whether that's true or not, I just think that that's, perception is reality, right? And so that's my question.
Yeah, I guess I can jump in here. So from a operational standpoint, oftentimes you'll have somebody that works for one organization sit on the board of another organization, and if there's ever a conflict of interest, there are rules in place that somebody can recuse themselves from a vote, let's say. But again, I think it's part of the conversation of having an honest set of feedback with the folks that are in the position and those that are not. And if my candidacy is successful and I get through there, if this grant is still in the phase that it's in currently, then I would definitely be listening and adhere to what the other EPs would like me to do and how to behave, keep everything above board.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, boarding asks the final question here. Are you comfortable with no vote on this until you have public-facing wireframes and whatnot? So I don't think that that's necessary, only because, again, we as Echelon are sort of trying to stimulate, but we're not trying to dictate what things are, right? So similarly to how you hire an artist, you sort of want to give them some leeway to design it. I don't think that it's necessary for us to see wireframes necessarily for the vote to occur. I think that the sort of merits of the project are, have been expressed earlier on this call. So me personally, I don't know if a wireframe is sort of the gateway for moving this forward. I think that perhaps when wireframes are ready, if the team is comfortable to sort of share and gather feedback, but I don't know if squashing the initiative because the wireframe is not ready is productive.
I actually don't think it's a bad call out that it could be worthwhile to postpone this until after the election. Just because we will have a different set of voters, and like Wow said, Sean might be an EP, but additionally, we're also going to be. The big vote is the election itself, which is coming up. I'm really just thinking out loud here, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to postponing it, but I could also see the advantage of just getting it out the door.
So I guess the question is whether we postpone the EP vote until after the new the new EPs come on board. I think that's fine. I mean, honestly, like I don't. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't like this is. To me, this is sort of like a really good resource. The community is you know using this, and the ask is not that expansive. So I just we can we can delay it, but I personally either or is fine.
Yeah, I also agree. If it were just up to me, I do think it makes sense. But obviously, we're still trying to get the right balance of weighing community feedback versus just voting on this stuff ourselves, and those structures haven't fully been brought to a version 2.0 yet.
Yeah, I'll just chime in here quickly, which is I think that given the first proposal that was passed with Defined, our experience working with the Prime Wiki team on this proposal and the proposal they submitted has adhered to the process by which the first grant was gone through. Now, there's a separate conversation about the grants program in general, what can be improved. And I think these are all really fair comments, and these are important conversations that we need to have as a community. With that said, I believe Meta had mentioned, and I think maybe we can kind of generally agree that until a sort of grants program 2.0 version is like rolled out, discussed with the community, and everyone sort of is on board with that, we shouldn't process additional grant proposals. However, I do think, given the work that's been put into this, by the Prime Wiki team and the sort of the first proposal that we had with Defined, there is a sense of moving the goalposts on them when it comes to sort of like the process that had been followed successfully before. And I want to make sure that we're sort of as fair as we can be to everyone here. And so that's that's something that I've been thinking about in regards to this. And I hope that is like taken in the spirit that it is intended to be taken in, which is, I'm not trying to like quickly pass this or jam this down anybody's throat, but I think that there is a balancing act here, and just some things to keep in mind that we should all keep in mind as a community here around sort of what the standard was previously, that passed, and sort of what that means about how we should treat this proposal, which actually has been in the hopper for quite a while and followed the process that we had previously defined.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Bu. I think I understand people's concerns, but groups can run parallel paths at the same time. You can walk and chew gum, so to speak. And as you mentioned, we've been working on this for a while and been in conversations with Echelon for a while, going back to last year. So certainly we put a lot of time and effort into this, and we voluntarily provided very detailed information, and have been working collaboratively with both teams to get to a goal here, but specifically with Echelon. So definitely appreciate that vote of confidence as we've gone through this process and reached this point.
So typically on these calls, and I say typically, but there's nothing typical about it because we've only had one prior case study. But on the last call for Defined, the purpose of this was to essentially sort the decision as an EP vote or prime vote. If you go on to the docs.echelon.io and go to governance, that's sort of the flow. A proposal gets submitted, we all come here and talk about it, and then we decide, hey, is this something that needs to go to a prime token vote, or can we as EPs just yay or nay it? So I think that's sort of where we're at right now. I know WoW, when you came up, sort of introduced an option 3, which is like, hey, maybe we just wait. But I think to to Bu's point and Sean, like potentially it is best to just move forward with the process that we have in place right now, which is let's decide who's going to vote on this, and then in the future we can continue to improve these processes. But for now, maybe we just stick with the status quo. So does that feel fair to at least everybody who's up on stage here today to make that call of, hey, EP vote versus prime vote?
It's fair for me.
Mhm.
I have no problem with that. I just thought it was an interesting question because I just didn't know if it was being discussed. I hadn't heard it asked.
Sorry if I joined in. I joined in a little bit late here. I have some spotty Wi-Fi. But just to go back to like the overall process, for me, I just look at it from like not who should vote on or whatnot, but it just comes down to like the extreme situations where like what if 12,500 prime, do you give it up front? And everybody spoke about no, it'd be streamed over time, but what if it does fall 50%? Now, how do we then ratify that? Does that become more prime? Like just those kind of things. Like I'd love to see the budget, why you came up with those numbers a little bit more. And then like, do we actually want to then continue to, for these type of things, post it in prime value or perhaps even like in a USDC type value? And like, how does that kind of come to be? So like that for me is like more of like what's important in this situation is like what happens in those bad, worst case scenarios, right? Best case, it prime flies and it's worth more and you guys have more runway. But at the end of the day, I'm just kind of thinking of it like from those perspectives more than who should be voting on or whatnot.
Sorry, question ranged from questions specifically for the wiki to how the governance process works. So I don't know if you want us to talk to that or if you'd like the current EPs to discuss the process. What do you think, Mac?
I may have missed some of the conversation, but as we're saying, like postponing and ratifying the proposal process, I think it's just important. Like, I think each grant proposal and depending on what the project is, it's hard to provide a one solution fits all, right? But anyways, it's just we had some chats in the governance discussion about like what if this happens, right? Like, do we release all the 12,500 prime if hypothetically if this goes through right away, and then what incentives do you have to like hold accountability and those kind of things, like just the overall like
Gotcha. Yeah.
how is it managed, right? Like if we give it all up front, then obviously there's an incentive for bad actors to run off with it, right? And then if you stream it over time based on goals and milestones, well, you've pegged it to a prime value, right? That you guys voted on to support with this much prime. But what if prime decreases by 80%? Now, does that still satisfy your runway and budget needs, right? And those are kind of like the just overall like thought process of like not who's voting for it or I think that's a different discussion, but I think like there needs to have like that part of the process like kind of ratified a little bit more.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Mac. I think these are really great things to flag. I mean, these are sort of conditions that we'll have to work through during on the contractual side. So yeah, you're talking about the sort of like I guess currency risk or the risk of the movement of the token. I think this is sort of similar to like similar questions that like Parallel is having with some of the sync prices and whatnot. So yeah, we do have to consider that. We don't have the answer, but we'll have to come up with a solution. But I think that that's like a little more detailed than for this community call. But it's a great thing to flag.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it comes down to like I remember talking to Basic Attention Token. I was speaking to the founders, and I was like, my objection to Basic Attention Token is why not just provide Ethereum as rewards? And their response was straight up, it's easier for us to give grants in our own token. It doesn't cost anything. So in this case, like if we want to support these types of projects, like okay, 12,500 prime maybe gets sold or converted into USDC, and then that's held on. But these type of discussion, I think like there's just certain things that need to be hashed out within that proposal because it is a scenario that could happen and has happened over many of times, right? So just would hate to see that happen and then them coming back and saying we need more after a 50% decline and then another 50% decline. And it's just this constant sap, right? So,
right. Yeah.
Anyways,
Mac,
I think we all are on the same page on that. So,
I think with the spotty Wi-Fi, you missed probably part of that discussion earlier, and it was talked to in detail about how those conversations have gone on between the Prime Wiki team and the Echelon team, and we've talked about what those guardrails would be, what deliverables would look like. And if you scroll up in the Echelon stage chat, you'll see some responses from View that also cover that.
Yeah, and to be clear, from the start, our vision of the grants program is that like the goal is not to run Echelon like, A16Z or Paradigm. Like we're not here to make seed investments in companies and give people infinite runway. The goal is to sort of, provide resources to community builders who are passionate about building products for the members of this ecosystem anyway, and give them an incentive to continue to iterate design. Ultimately, people have to decide for themselves how far they want to take this, but if it's a project or a product that is adding value to the community through the actual service that is provided, the fact that we can pay Prime to people to do work is a great thing from a big picture point of view when it comes to making the argument about what Prime is or isn't, and like this stuff is important and it matters. Like I think that we have to be cautious about how funds are paid out and allocated, but I think understanding at least the original intent. Now, that doesn't mean that has to be the intent going forward. As more individuals cycle in and out of the foundation and this program is iterated on, the intent and the goal of the grant program can evolve and change. And I think that would be healthy. But I just want to provide a little bit of context for how we sort of viewed this initial V1. Like we're here to sort of stimulate and support people and through that drive additional value and utility back to the Prime token by people working for the Prime token.
So why don't we? Because we've been going here for over an hour. Typically, I think we like to keep these to around that time. So I think, given the ask, it, to me at least, makes sense that we could just sort of say, hey, this one's an EP vote, and go ahead and move forward, knowing that we fully intend on a rework of this system for future grants, and so this would kind of be the last vote that follows this exact process. And I think given the fact that it's relative to the percentage of treasury and all that stuff, the risk reward seems pretty good. So that would be my vote here. Meta or View, does that seem okay to you guys based on what we've heard from people today?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a problem, and to me, like asking for everyone the entire community to pull out their ledgers to vote on this, it just seems not productive. I think this is sort of a greater benefit. So to me, like, that's what the APs are here for, is to sort of expedite some of these decisions. And we think that like this is to a greater benefit of the community. I have a couple more typers coming in. Okay.
Yeah, I will say, we've had discussions as well about what these milestones might be, and trying to make sure, that we are, ultimately we're custodians and, guardians of, this prime and this treasury. And it's great that people want to build on top of this and, take the prime token as, compensation for their work. But, I will say to the community that I'm a career software engineer working in distributed systems, and so my brain just works in a way where I'm constantly thinking about like what can possibly go wrong. And so, trying to think about the edge cases, trying to think about scenarios by which obviously not saying this would happen, but foundations can get taken advantage of. We've seen it in DeFi. These are all top of mind when we're having these discussions, and we do want to make sure that we're able to provide some of the, initial prime upfront so that, folks have some ability to, get going, especially if they have upfront costs, while also making sure that, things, deliverables are met and, value is actually being driven back to the community by the project. So I would say that we share a lot of these concerns, and these are things that we certainly keep in our framing when having these conversations with these teams, defined as well.
Okay, great. We're starting to meme in the chat now, so I think we're close to the end. Thanks again for everyone for joining the call and chiming in with feedback. And again, I just want to say thanks for just being patient. And this process is we're just not going to do it right the first time, and slowly and iteratively we'll improve it. So appreciate you guys sort of giving us the feedback we need to sort of modify and improve the system. All right.
Thank you guys for having us. We appreciate the support from the community and the opportunity to continue to support the community as it grows.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
GG's.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. Bye.